Okay, calling the meeting to order. Gonna first order of business is to review and approve the October 21 minutes of the governance committee. I'll move it. Second. All in favor? All right. All right. Actually, you want to walk us through that?
As we do annually, we have to review the election of officers. So you have a memo on page 5 that indicates the proposed slate of officers for 2025 is to continue the current slate with Anders as chair, Heather as VP for vice chair, John, you as treasurer, and John Bureau as secretary.
And Ashley's president.
Myself as secretary.
Yeah.
So, do we need a motion? I think we just review it, right?
I think you're reviewing it. That will occur, so you have your annual meeting of the members when we first come in December, in which the board election occurs. And then the board, now elected, will then elect the officers in its first meeting, really, following the members' meeting.
So I'm a little biased. I think it's a good slate. The only, and we could talk about this maybe in, if we have an executive session later, the question of officers. So.
Great. Perfect. We had a lot of people sign up for committee responsibilities after our appeal.
And we haven't heard from anybody that doesn't want to continue in terms of officer, right?
All right, so on to the conflict of interest forms.
Yes, sir. So we have a summary of the confidential evaluations. Oh, actually, not that one yet.
No, first it's
Sorry. Disclosure of, right, looking at the slide into that. We have a memo in the packet that has a summary of the conflict of interest disclosures for this year. Similar to years past, with some minor revisions related to with Richard Fleesman coming on board. You'll see his disclosure coming at the very end of the bullet points, and then another, John, you declared your relationship with Wind Development, so that was a new one this year that was identified, and then the remainder of them have been ongoing relationships or potential conflicts that have been disclosed, and all of the board members have been recusing themselves as appropriate on each matter.
So we do this each year and we report, this memo will be part of the board packet. And it'll be quickly reviewed, and not quickly, it'll be reviewed at the board meeting, and that will add it, but this is the governance committee's task to review these each year. And then approve the conflicts. We'll do a motion in a second after this. We'll approve these conflicts subject to continued disclosure and recusal.
It's interesting. So this looks correct. What you don't know is if there's anything missing. It's more what's omitted, not what's present.
And it's based on disclosure.
Disclosure.
And the board members have a fiduciary duty to do so, and we will remind them, and John does.
So you've distilled all the disclosures and these are the only relevant ones.
That staff sees, right?
So staff, this is actually all of the active ones that have been disclosed to us this year. So it's a timestamp. It was submitted this fall. And
So let me give you an example. So like I'm on the board of the Community Preservation Corporation, which may or may not have financings in the city of Albany that may or may not be, but you don't list that here. So I disclosed it, but it's not listed.
We don't have a relationship with CAC.
No, it says board member. It says
Okay.
board member of the Community Preservation Corp. Where? Under, and
it's
it's
on
in
here, but
this.
it's not in the
it's
memo.
in
So
this
maybe we
one.
need to put it in the
right.
memo.
Okay. Like I'm thinking about Jaqueen, right? Jaqueen's talking to CPC about that he would get an IDA, he would get, I mean, that's good.
It's a good point. I mean, and we will stress to the board members, we don't know necessarily we know what's reported, so if you report it, that's good. So the staff has an eye on it.
Okay.
But these topics come up on board meetings that no one's thinking about. And so the board members do have they should think about that, and we'll remind them of it.
So does this, I guess, I'll just use Shaheen as a straw man for a second. So let's say he did pursue that, and he got IDA support and CPC financing. And it's not listed on this memo, but I recuse myself at the moment of it, you know.
That's fine.
That's fine.
That would be adequate.
Yeah.
That would be adequate.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Perfect.
We are very, I would say we're pretty, I mean, from the public authorities I work on, this is pretty robust. I mean, we
Okay.
developed it and it's pretty disciplined in our look at it. Yeah,
Good.
yeah.
Oh, and then you have the summary. I see it now.
Yeah, so
Thank
please
you.
review, in particular, your own, make sure it has everything that you noted, and then, everyone else as well.
But Anders, you're right. I think that the ongoing responsibility to, look within and think about all the various relationships you may have, as things come before the board is probably more important than what's here, because
This is good.
I think what we're trying to get at here is sort of systemic overlap between our organization and maybe somebody else's organization, if it rises to the level of, if you're disclosing and recusing on everything at some point, it wouldn't, you probably don't need to be on the board anymore. But I don't think there's no conflicts that are, or there's no relationships that are disclosed here that cause me to say, oh, wow, this is really gonna be a problem, because everything we touch is gonna involve this person's outside business. If that makes any sense.
I mean, the nature of the board members that we recruit are gonna be very active in the community, gonna be top of companies and things, they're gonna have a lot of roles. So you're going to have potential conflicts, and, these are what we've analyzed, and nothing rises to the level that, we're concerned it can be addressed.
Is the expectation, if a matter comes before the board, that one of these conflicts that's referenced in the memo, that the board member would at that time again inform the board
Yep.
of his conflict? So it's not like that person goes back and says, well, I guess if it's a vote, you have to abstain, right? But
Supposed to walk away from the table and not be part of the discussion.
And this helps us
Yeah.
remind people that, oh, by the way, you may have a,
Helps us police.
you know what bothers me? This doesn't happen here. It happens at my bank all the time. People say, I'm gonna abstain from that after the vote. It's like after the freaking vote. It's like, and they color the conversation.
Right.
So I just think you gotta be mindful of that.
Now, the board could certainly choose to have somebody with an interest in the room and obtain their view if they choose to take it, and obtain facts that person may have that others may not. But when the board deliberates and votes, that person should be out.
Right.
It's
And
good to
people
know
should,
that ahead of time. So
I
that
just
you
think
know.
people should know of it before
Ahead of
the
time.
deliberations start,
But yeah, I would, yes,
Yes.
yes,
especially if they add their view.
yes,
And then after the fact, say, oh, by the way, I'm gonna abstain.
yeah.
Irritating.
Of course, they might.
We're gonna reiterate
During-
that doesn't happen at this board. You've
No,
seen
I think
it.
this board, I think to Tom's point, I think we do a really good job of it.
Yeah.
We try to.
Yeah,
It's, you're trying to capture everything. Sometimes it's hard.
But, and you might recognize within that discussion, you better abstain. Maybe you didn't know going in.
that's right.
All right. Anyways,
Maybe
right.
maybe somebody didn't think of it initially.
Looks good.
so I think we're good. We don't need a motion, or do we do
So
to,
we're gonna approve the contents of this memo and the conflicts that have been disclosed.
so can I get a motion to approve the disclosed conflicts?
Second.
All in favor? Passed unanimously. On to the confidential board evaluation forms.
Okay, one I was so eager to get through previously. So once again, we're doing our annual review, things that are recommended by the Authority's Budget Office. The Authority's Budget Office requires, Public Authority Guidance requires that the authorities do an annual self-evaluation. As part of that, they recommend that every individual board member does a confidential self-evaluation. You have on the slide and in front of you the summary of those results. As a reminder, the summary gets submitted with the ABO reporting, the annual report, not the individual responses, but the summary. You'll note that, you know, while we have 14 active board members, we only did end up getting 13 responses. We suspect that someone thinks they submitted and didn't, but it's confidential, so it's hard to know who. And you'll note that going down, there was one member that did not submit a response for one of the criteria. So I think they just missed that one. I think the final, was it the last one? It has 12 counts for agree and instead of 13. But overwhelmingly, majority
I think they all
says
have-
they agree.
They all have 13.
Except for.
The bottom,
flip
the very
page.
last, on the last page.
Gotcha.
Do we, other than reviewing this, we don't need to do a motion or anything? Okay,
So
so,
the thing I'd say is like, we need to reiterate, some of this is, it's kind of practice, like board members have sufficient opportunity to, what do we need to do, if anything, to amend our practice to give people more opportunity to discuss, to question? I mean, that's kind of a healthy, it's not a majority, obviously, and empowered to delay votes and things that people, I would hope that people understand.
that
They
they
have a
can press pause anytime they want, or at least ask the board to press pause.
So I think we have to reinforce that, but it's, some of it is your personal responsibility as a board member
Right.
to do the work and to be present in a meeting and raise your hand, for lack of a better word. So.
I would love if we could, to the extent somebody deviates from the agree column, that we could get
A comment.
like,
Yeah, and we could ask that next year. It's a good thought.
That is a good thought.
because it, in a
So-
vacuum, I remember doing this at some point, like 7 years ago, and answering one of these questions around, you know, the board knows the statutory obligations of the authority, and the authority is in compliance with state law. We're not an authority, we're a, you know, like, so, I mean,
Right.
and how many people have read the not-for-profit corporation law that are on this board? So I just, sometimes you sit there and you're like, okay, we have a brand new board member. Do they know what the not, you know, I don't know. So you say, well, somewhat agree, because I can't say,
I think that's fair.
but my comment would be somewhere along those lines, as opposed to, you know, oh my God, nobody knows what we're supposed to be doing here. Which I think is,
Being empowered to delay votes, defer agenda items, table actions.
I
That's
think
not
one of
that.
the easy fixes for that is, we should ask, do we all feel we're getting the materials early enough to do the research? I feel we always get it early enough. But maybe people feel they need it sooner. So they come in with their research and questions. I feel it comes early to me.
I think that's good, but I think we should address it at the board.
Yeah, I think some of it's a little bit nature of surveys, like I just feel like there's some human nature, people tend to not love to put like 10 on a survey, they're always like 9. But this is an agree, somewhat disagree, and disagree, so you kind of need to go all in or not.
Are these questions prescribed or?
Yeah.
This is the template that the ADL recommends, so this is the model template. We don't like to deviate from the model.
Mhm.
It doesn't look like that.
Yeah, ours is prettier, but they have just a boring PDF that we can put up. Plain PDF.
Yeah, I think if the board chair sort of addresses the board on this, and the governance chair, maybe that's the right person for that. And I think the board members have a duty,
You have a duty.
if they see a deficiency, if you even want to call these deficiencies, I think they individually have a duty to bring that forward if they really feel there is one.
If it's compromising.
If it's really something that. they
Yeah,
feel-
I'm with you on that. All
So,
right, we should still address it.
I'll bring us through the third section.
Performance review?
You had something for it?
You have it in the packet, but I am proud of myself for remembering, John, that you had wanted some sort of comparison from past years to help analyze the numbers in the context of like our existing operations. So we did that. It was an easy enough lift for staff to be able to do basically 2022 to 2024, just for you to review in terms of a draft to compare this. But the memo that we provided is the template memo that we will provide to the ABO. This is the draft of it for your review, and it
Is
walks
this-
you through it.
Yeah. Do we use this to inform a strategic plan at the board or a tactical plan at the staff to sit here and say 3 years in a row, aggregate amount of loans to market rate residential units? Is, you know, one, is that good or bad? Maybe they're getting financing from somewhere else, but you know, are we, not to jump ahead, but are we creating plans around how we execute on this?
Yeah, I think some of it, you know, not necessarily the loan one in particular, but some of it is just natural fluctuations around operations, but other ones, we can definitely use them as a potential flag for revising strategy or taking a look at our operations and seeing what we need to do differently or how we need to tackle things in a more proactive approach on that specific note. You know, from.
And then I think we've gone back and forth, there's not, these are categories, but they're not numeric or measurable goals. We measure them, but there's no measurable attainment goal that we're shooting to achieve.
There's not a benchmark,
It's
yeah.
not a benchmark,
Yeah.
so we can't say that 0 is a failure to meet a goal, it's just an evaluation of what we did against that category.
Yes.
0 maybe was expected or just what your task was.
Yeah, so based on it being an ABO requirement, the sentiment that I had gathered from the meetings that I had been in last year was not a desirable thing to have a benchmark included within this document. We could potentially develop those in terms of like a strategic plan as like an operational guide, but for the purposes of this document, when
Right.
an authority is
I think
looking at
this
us
is
and
good.
seeing if we pass or fail, I think that's a tough thing to have in here.
Right.
Since there's a lot of factors that influence these things that are outside of our control.
So for instance, at the bank, we would use something like this with other stuff, but to evaluate people's performance, corporation performance, and that would waterfall to compensation. But that's not what this is. Right?
No.
Right, Jen?
Sorry, what?
Their fish opens this weekend.
Or does too.
Anything you want to comment here, Asher?
You know, there was some pretty significant increases on the business side that I think are primarily responsible for or are a result of proactive efforts in the neighborhoods to go out and walk the streets and talk to people, along with our normal dissemination of things, webinars that we do and whatnot. So, you know, some of those numbers went from, you know, 130 last year to 250 in terms of business assistance. As far as multifamily, you know, we have a big 440 units there this year, but I will note that that is almost predominantly
all but 12.
all but 12 units is affordable housing. So they're mainly line tech deals.
What's that? So you have market rate below.
That's what you're saying, the market. All the 12, right?
The 12 are market rate.
or 12, right?
Yeah, so inclusionary zoning, having those requirements set forth on the project has really put a brake on the pipeline. So development review hasn't seen projects. We got the 112 units, but it's because it's below the inclusionary zoning threshold, because it phases up from there. And the rest have been light tech and other affordable housing projects.
So this is for our edification, this is not to be,
No, this is
Same
a
thing.
draft internal document. It is to solve sort of the benchmarking thing a little bit.
I think it's super helpful. The one category. I mean, you guys get asked, well, there's categories that aren't on here that I think maybe would also be helpful. And I'm not quite sure, like, we almost need a Liberty Park category, separate, just like in addition to what's happening here, because Liberty Park was a huge time suck for you guys this year, and at some point, we're gonna see
Results.
activity resulting from that. In one year, we're gonna have like a huge wow
Yeah,
factor in one of these columns, but some way to benchmark Liberty Park, and maybe if we go through, maybe we could talk about that in the context of the 2025 annual
okay.
performance measurements, and maybe changing up our performance measurements for 2025 as it relates to going forward, because I think Liberty Park is becoming such a potentially important project for us.
Okay. Yeah, it could maybe, you have the overarching goals, maybe it's a metric under one of their specific goals. For at least for 20, would we want it for 2025 though, based on your construction timeline, I'm not sure, but.
Well, just like some way to like capture.
Yeah.
Like, we don't capture, the Greyhound bus acquisition,
Yeah.
which was, given all the time we focused on it at
Mhm.
finance committee, I can only imagine how much time you guys were spending on it, so. And it doesn't really. It's not captured, that effort and the litigation activities, isn't captured in the 2024 performance metrics, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, so maybe
it's
like
not,
an acquisition type of metric?
I guess, yeah.
Could be one of them, or maybe it could be multiple combined.
Or just other, Liberty Park other, I don't know.
Right.
There's gotta be some way to like, that's one performance metric type category. Another one that Andrew comes back, we'll maybe just walk through each of these for 2024 and then talk
Right.
2025, because I think the other metric that it doesn't get captured is you guys get asked to look at a lot of things where, projects don't meet the right criteria and you weed through them.
Mhm.
And so maybe there's 58 applicants for projects and you only do 23 of them. But you had to look at the other 35 in the course of your day-to-day activities, so there's value to all that activity, even though we don't close on a grant, or
Yeah.
you're doing a job that we need to recognize. Vetting those various projects, if that makes sense.
100%. It's not parsed out, but I would say that aspect of it is included within the metrics where we say Capitalized Albany provided technical and or financial assistance. Whenever it has like a provided assistance, we do include like business leads that don't necessarily facilitate anything beyond maybe we referred them to a partner or something like that. So it's not parsed out. there's probably an opportunity to have that be more specific, but we do include those.
So let's take 2024 to start and just go right through
Mhm.
the, the performance goals and metrics that we did for 2024. So, number one, implement the recommendations of the board's strategies. And under that, we have number of projects, businesses provided technical and financial assistance clarified within the relevant. So you guys provided, or we did as a corporation, assistance for more than 250 projects of businesses. And in the context of the last 3 years, that's a significant jump.
Yeah, so that was the one that I had said they went out into the neighborhoods, they walked the neighborhoods, better community engagement, got a little bit of bump there.
Now, would the 250 also capture, you were administering, a grant program that we had, like my example before, you got 58 applications and we awarded 23. Would the 35 that you didn't award be included in that 250 number, or would they not?
Yes,
Okay.
and Kathy was very good about trying to make sure she wasn't like double dipping on things that were reported elsewhere.
Okay,
Um,
all right, so then, the next one, market demand for multifamily housing by supporting strategic market rate and affordable residential and mixed use projects, and so there we, again, the numbers for 2024 are certainly a lot different than last year.
That's mainly a result of two projects getting awarded 9% LIHTC credits. And another very large 185 unit project getting 4% credits up on Northern Boulevard there. So this is really driven by the state in a sense in terms of their tax credit awards.
Are these projects that closed during 2024, or are these projects that got awarded in 2024?
approved, we went out of order.
Approved, okay. Approved, but
Some of which have already
Municipal
closed,
approvals,
CADA approvals, the IDA approvals.
IDA approvals.
and planning board approvals as well. This is
But-
inherent in that.
The linchpin is the funding award from the state, right? So they've received funding from the state?
Yeah, so multiple awards, obviously LIHTC has a huge pipeline of projects that are applying for that assistance, and some of these had applied multiple times in the
What's the-
past, they finally got through.
What's the 4% deal on the Northern Boulevard?
That's Northgate Landing, that's Conifer, the same outfit that did 25 Delaware Ave, the old YMCA, so they're gonna tear down that. What was it, red roof in, red carpet in?
We can never, it's one of the red.
One of the red-
I can never remember the one.
185.
That's great. And what were the other 9% deals?
So we had, one that is, up for approvals next week with the IDA, at 67 Livingston, right, on the corner of Livingston and Broadway, by the gas station. That's David Seraph and, his partnership with CAPREP. 57 units of affordable housing in
They're
addition.
gonna replace the gas station?
No, it's across the
Across
street.
the street, the
Vacant
vacant
plot.
land
And
And
they're,
the other side
on the
of,
corner, yeah.
right near
not the post
Patrick
office.
Shoes,
Four,
row
not
houses.
four,
Directly
Albany Distilling.
down the
Albany
street
Distilling.
from Albany Distilling, same side of the street,
and deposit.
and DeFazios, so, another
Infill
partnership with
development on
CAPREP.
that corner, would be huge.
Cool. And then what's the other one?
Regan Development, Colvin Commons, there's actually two affordable housing projects on Colvin.
Right.
One is a large 4% deal on the corner,
That's the old
closer.
Armory site.
closer to the central. Mr. Regan's project is 63 units of affordable housing, and it's also gonna have a ground floor commercial space that's gonna be used as a daycare. That'll also be open to the community, so that was very well
Is
received.
that a veterans project, or?
The 4% one, Freedom Springs, closer to Central Ave, is supportive housing geared towards veterans at risk of homelessness.
But has that gotten approved as well?
Yes.
Good developers.
The no new market rate loans during 2024,
How about
is that because we're successful in we are by jump starting downtown residential, now everybody can get loans without needing our help, or is that because the market is not there right now?
Could be a mixture of the two. I think, we've seen a lot of people inquiring, but they're just, for a number of reasons, the project isn't ready. And, you know, us providing financing is down the list. There's a lot of other things that they need to work through. But yeah,
How about the Rise? How about the building at the corner of Pine and Pearl? The old sheds, Carter Convoy.
No.
Whatever, I don't know what's.
Oh, the old
Security.
Shanks and Kinlan building, that's all you're talking about?
Shanks and Kinlan, yes,
Kinlan, yeah.
yeah.
The one
Yeah,
right there, yeah.
Next to Jean's.
Yeah, so they put on 2 stories, right?
Yeah.
What's going on right
It's
now,
incredible, yeah.
but that's not.
That received approvals a while ago. right?
that received, that came through in 2023.
I guess like, just maybe, and we can talk about this through
Mhm.
2025, if we should maybe flag that, is there something we need to do differently with our downtown
Yeah.
residential program,
Real good town council to change the.
inclusionary housing?
Well, maybe the small scale stuff, there's under 12 units, it's not.
Correct. So we're gonna see, you know, Jaqueen is right at 12 units. We saw another project that's on this
He's
list.
affordable, right? That's not affordable.
I think he's working through whether or not that's gonna be tax credits or not, but that restore money may be able to, you know, allow rents to be suppressed a little bit without fully affecting the bottom line as it normally would.
All right, let's go next category, strength and employment. So we, how is this different than the first category, at least in terms of how is the 280 calculated
Yeah,
versus?
so it's just the nuance of citywide versus ones that are in downtown for impact downtown or regional economic development strategies or neighborhood plans. So this is the citywide number that we have for that.
So there could be overlap between the 215 and 280.
Yes.
Number of grants awarded. Do we have a number of, there's a,
Yeah, so the number of grants awarded is 22. We had went with value, because that has been the way this has been reported at least the last 3 years, but I do see that it says number, so I'm not sure.
all right, 22's.
Maybe that should be a
Insignificant.
tax added to value for the 2025 version.
Well, part of this, I think, as I view this exercise is to sort of recognize the hard work that you guys are doing. If you did one loan or one grant for 200,000, or 22 in the aggregate for 200,000, you know, it's gonna be a lot more work to do 22.
Yeah,
So,
I appreciate that.
yeah, but I mean, I think some of this,
Is that the measurement?
well, some
What
of
is it about impact?
it's both. I think there's part of the exercise here is to establish whether or not staff is staff working hard, essentially.
I don't know is that right? Because I would say it's more about organizational.
And if it's organizational impact, we should maybe think about our metrics changing then.
All right, so are we using this for?
We used to use
evaluation
this,
of the corporation or evaluation of staff performance?
For ABO, I think it's overall the corporation, what we're accomplishing for the
I
year.
would say yes.
Yeah, yes to all of the above.
it's both.
I mean, I think it should be the corporation's goals. If by chance we are achieving the corporation's goals, then there's normally, you could make the logical assumption that at least the staff is aligned and executing properly because we're achieving the goals.
Right, so I agree with that, so we set the goals and the staff executes on achieving those goals. To the extent we do or don't make the goals, is is reflective of the corporation's impact and the staff's ability to execute. And there's all sorts of nuance to that, but as far as a public document, I think this is all about what's the impact of the organization.
But I think if we number an aggregate amount of votes, I think, well, I believe both of those things are important to the organization and our mission, but also what is our staff resources being deployed in the right manner? So we could tell staff to go do $1 million worth of grants, and they do one grant for $1 million, and did they fulfill the mission of the corporation? Because one may be incredibly impactful, or it may be not as impactful as 22 that get us to 200,000. So I think it's on us a little bit to say, okay, we said number and aggregate amount. Are we happy with the 22 grants being administered? Knowing that there were probably more than 22 applicants for those grants, these guys spent a lot of time vetting those various grants. Do we need to change the parameters? Should we be giving more money out? Or, I think all this is what we're supposed to evaluate.
I guess my point was, I don't care how long it took to vet the grants. The point is, what was the outcome? And what was the impact, whether it's 1 grant or 30 grants, what was the impact of?
How many of those grants were facade?
Facade was 14 of them.
And the other,
Amplify was 6 and downtown retail was 2.
So, I don't know, I don't think we got to get hung up on it.
we're gonna have that facade money next year.
We do have an allocation for next year. We'd probably be looking at first to second quarter.
Same amount, same total.
We had, I think it was 50,000 allocated from CRC for that for next year. Actually, I could be wrong. That might have been downtown retail versus Amplify.
I mean, I
We
would
do
think-
have an allocation for facade for next year.
Yes. I would think that number, big number, 14 and 22. Points in a direction different than if you're doing 14 bigger than 10,000 facade grant money, and which isn't available every year. We've been fortunate lately to have it,
Yeah.
but we didn't always have it. We may not always have that. But I
And
mean, the
we've been-
pursuit of grants.
Yeah, and we've had some big one-off grants when we did SBAC back in like 2020 to 2021. That was 62 awards, and so that always has a lingering impact because administering it is like a 2-year cycle. So whether or not we award a ton of grants this year, there's always a bunch more work for Cassidy and the team to be working on to do the reimbursements and get those out the door. So awards this year were lower, but we are wrapping up reimbursements on the big program, which was from last year. That's funded through the ARPA process, more than $600,000 of awards that we still got to get some money out the door. We've paid out a significant number, but there's a bunch more work to do to get those out. So I think it's a combination, like the money makes sense, the aggregate amount makes sense, the number does make sense, but it's not the only number that matters. The total award each year isn't necessarily the only number that matters based on for capacity concerns or things like that.
And rolling through some of the other, the job numbers, I'm on page 13, number of permanent temporary jobs. So obviously there was a slight dip on the permanent side from last year. But it's sort of in line with 2022, and the temporary job number, obviously not a whole lot from last year, but is lower than 2022. I don't know if there's anything to flag there for us.
Those are a direct result of the unit counts in the pipeline, so because we have unit counts higher, you'll see those temporary jobs have a big bump. The permanent jobs, the multifamily don't tend to have a lot of permanent jobs, because the awards were mainly focused on the grant side, because the awards were mostly focused on facade, that doesn't have a job creation element. And downtown retail reporting, isn't due in yet for the two that were awarded, so, that's sort of the permanent dip there and the rise in the temporary.
And then the distressed census tract number dipping, any reason for that we could point to?
The main reason that we could track was, when like Cassidy gets phone calls from an entrepreneur, they may call, they don't have a business location yet. They may not always provide their home address. So in terms of address tracking, that address validation doesn't exist for all of the inquiries that we get, depending on like how far they go in the process. So to your earlier point, if they don't progress through a grant application, we have less data from them. In past years, we've had more data because we've had more grant applications that go through the whole process.
How do you define distress? Is it by,
It's based on the CADA policies for distress and.
And we update those annually when the ACS 5-year census data comes out. And we have seen, just as an example, we've seen census tract 11, which is downtown, I think 2 years ago, went from distressed to not distressed based on our metrics. Still eligible for assistance because it's an adjacent to the distressed tract, but you know, we're seeing those numbers come up in a positive way.
is it a lot of the projects you're talking about, I think are in distress tracks, so you got the stuff, the affordable deals that we talked about. The thing on Northern that's a distressed track, isn't it?
That is a couple, we did see some projects kind of further out in the city, further west, if you will. Freedom Springs and Coleman Avenue, I don't believe are in a distressed track. I don't know if they're not, the way they're built, the way they're drawn.
And those IDA projects are only like 6 of the projects in the
Right.
list, so.
All right, let's just keep moving it along here. The collaboration category or bullet point, so we have number of REDC projects and programs assisted and awarded. Looks like we had a little bit of an increase. Across the various categories, top category at least. The number of contacts reached via email, listserv, and social media. What are we capturing there?
So the reason, so we're capturing active subscribers on the email list, and so that's the reason why that dipped from 2023 to 2024 a little bit, is some people become active subscribers or unsubscribe, or if they move organizations, we might lose a subscription there. The big dip from 2022 to 2023, I talked with Mike about, we were reporting the data a little bit differently. Previously, we were reporting all contacts in our contact list, and I think it was a change of strategy of doing active subscribers. So it's not necessarily that we lost 80 people or whatever that number is. It's more that we went to the subscribers. He felt like that was a better standard to use than just our number of contacts in our list.
Anything else you want to flag in the collaborate category? Is the number of projects assisted with, or awarded with municipal, state, federal resources, is that going down just because the ARPA money is going away?
Yeah, so, yes, we didn't have the big program this year, in terms of awards, things like that. So it's mainly the city, the money for the city facade program, the money, you know, that we're administering or we had administered for Clinton Market, the ARPA money that we got there. And then Cassie, what else did you factor into that one? The municipal, state and federal resources. Might have been REDC awards too for that one.
Yeah, I think REDC is included for that, and so that's restore CFA, URI. Main Street this year.
For whatever reason, the requests for letters of support and municipal resolutions during the CFA process have been down a little bit, I think, over the last few years compared to most recent years.
You guys have more applicants, and that's not something we can control. It's if people want our assistance with it, they can, or if they don't need a letter of support, they won't come to us.
So moving on to the revenue, obviously. There wasn't a lot of activity on. Revenue coming in. Did acquire some property, so I think, that's kind of what, maybe we talk about that for 2025, that. That performance metric didn't get captured. Here.
Something I also realized after we drafted this was that the LOI consideration is included in this as a metric of any sort of funding received, but I don't know in terms of that contract if we would report that. That's probably confidential.
But we could report it and
Just put it under other new revenue
Yeah,
of some sort.
we could just say X, receipt for other matters or something.
Yeah.
So in terms of. Board approval of this. Is
There's a
there
resolution coming up.
for the board meeting?
You'll set, yeah, I think it's the next page.
Okay.
Really your role is to review and then set the goals for next year.
Got it. So. I think maybe a lot of my commentary is really. More directed to 2025. Although I don't know, I mean, we went on the property acquisition spree this year, I don't know that. I just feel like we need a Liberty Park. Category. Some type of. Liberty Park metric.
Brainstorm and figure out how to distill that best down to represent it with a metric that makes sense.
Given where we are in the cycle, yeah,
For,
I think that would make sense.
for this year, for any revisions to the memo, maybe it would be a revision in the. That last section you were talking about, the revenue generating section, maybe it's just adding. In the other new revenue and adding in. We don't have.
Other consideration. For board, other board consideration. And then we just put in what you guys did for Liberty Park during the course of the year. I mean, Liberty Park has potential to cut across every one of these. Metrics that we have for 2025.
That's the idea. I think Liberty Park has some specificity of importance.
Do you agree that we should call it out as a separate metric?
I think so.
This is an in-house document.
That one is,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a draft.
So maybe Andy's right, maybe he comes back with some, given where we are with the development schedule, what we think we want to achieve in this given year and set some goals around Liberty Park development. So maybe the governance committee recommendation is we develop some goals around the advancement of Liberty Park development. And then you come back with kind of some benchmarks that we think are reasonable expectations, and, I think that'd be great.
And then bring them back for governance in December, so that the governance can actually approve the.
So good.
Yes, I like it.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Liberty Park is square on that first goal, right? I mean, that is the board directed, that's, I would argue, we could argue, that's probably our number one Liberty Park. I mean,
So maybe we put
do
it,
so many things here.
maybe we put it there.
But it is straight on, you can't find a study in the last decade that hasn't identified that area as the area to develop, and we cite that in every resolution that we've done.
And we finally own it.
And that one only has one metric. On that particular side.
Well, the reality is, if you were successful, it would touch all the state.
Sure, it would.
Yes,
Right.
Yeah, so maybe we-
Market rate housing, affordable housing.
Pull it up under the first bullet point.
for now, because it's mostly a strategy.
Implement the recommendation of the board's strategies and just list the Liberty Park
Activities,
activities
but not
in there.
limited to the high priority and whatever, something like that. Yeah.
I don't wanna prolong this longer than that. So the resolution, you guys will make some suggested changes to that resolution for the board meeting? Or we'll just revisit this.
We'll revisit this, because I think we need another governance committee before the December board meeting, to review the D Hilton,
Got it.
study.
Okay, so that next resolution is gonna be taken up then to compensation resolution.
Yeah, so that's just in the draft reference,
Okay.
but yeah, would be take up now.
So,
Oh, before the semicolon?
Yeah.
Okay.
so we're to 3C, but are we,
How do you wanna do that?
do we do that?
I think we're gonna do that in executive session.
Yeah, so we should do that last, so-
Executive session.
Okay.
Review, board committee appointments.
What page is that?
22.
And you've done this.
What's wrong with Dave Parenti? Why don't people wanna hang out with him? Wasn't? What? Who's this guy? What's his problem?
I don't like being at the end of the table. Means I can call the shots.
Were we gonna think about the executive committee? Seriousness though?
Yeah.
We're gonna add people to that or add officers or add?
I don't know, I think that's a discussion for the board. Does the board, I think you pointed out, Anders. At one point, that committee took it upon itself to do an awful lot.
Right, so I think the intention of the board is to keep the status quo of not using, but it does have all the powers of, so like, if there was a critical matter.
Yeah.
That you wanted more than just the chairman and the executive director to say, okay, you could say, let's kick that to the executive committee and if
You could, the board would have to do that.
the
right?
board, I'm talking about the board, but then
Yes.
it would have to be a more valid committee than.
But it would have to be, I think what you're saying, it have to be constant, to be ready to do something like that, we should have a constituted.
I think so.
I mean,
I think-
historically, we've done that through kicking it to the finance committee.
Which isn't as good, right?
Well, depends on who's in it.
Well, meaning. Just seems more if it's a finance matter, yeah, I get it, but if they're kicking stuff to the finance committee that's non-financial. Just because that's a body that can,
By law, we're required to have three, under the public authority law, you're supposed to have finance, governance, and audit. The others are pursuant to what the corporation wants to do. And our bylaws provide us with that ability.
do we need a membership committee? Seriously,
Yes.
maybe, do we?
Yeah, I don't think there's any strategy to it. When we formed it, there was.
Yeah, so
That was a lot,
we used to be,
that was a long time ago.
we used to be thinking about that in those terms and
But
then.
maybe we, have a meeting and decide if there's work to be done on that committee before you.
Yeah,
say
good,
no.
good idea.
Maybe there's some.
You're correct.
Do you have any suggestions on that, Tom?
On membership,
Yeah.
this has always been a membership organization. There was talk a couple times of converting it into to get away from membership. And like a lot of non-for-profits don't have members, they have their board and that's it. And then, but, you know, there are, I think it has provided us with a lot of, ability to say that we're driven by members now. You know, you
I
might,
think you're right. It gives us some standing and the question is,
yeah.
do we need this membership committee to help continue that? And in which case, but why don't we have the membership committee determine, some of this stuff can be managed at the board level.
Yeah.
If it's, you know, episodic or whatever, it just happens every now and then, we could deal with it at a full board meeting, you don't need a committee.
Right.
Maybe we consider active recruitment.
Yeah.
We did that 8 or 9 years ago,
For membership.
for membership.
I think that.
We, at one point, we were talking about it going the other way, saying, let's not be a member, this is just a
Right.
burden. Why be a membership?
Go through the annual meetings and that stuff, getting the votes out, and there is a certain piece to that, there's a revenue piece to it that we get as well. I would think the membership committee would be a good place to start to even
Talking
answer
about
that question.
Choosing that out, yeah. Cause staff does, attempt to recruit new members, we do a membership drive, but it's not, you know, it's not an extensive effort. I mean, we
Right.
send a letter and we usually accompany that with an early in our annual event and things like that, but like, we're not aggressive in terms of joining membership.
Maybe we have a talk about, aiming, you know, maybe leaders in the development community who aren't members, not just locally, but regionally. Maybe we have a sort of strategic approach, narrow, so we don't bite off more than we can chew. Things to talk about. I think we should convene a meeting.
Luckily, it's just you, get Cora pretty easily.
Easy to get caught.
Just see, if you want me to sit in on the conversation, happy to do it. Or not, or if you don't want me to be there, I get that a lot too.
But conversation.
I want you to do it, John doesn't want you to do it. It's not me. It's not me.
Oh, boy. All right,
Anyways,
let's keep going. So
so that executive committee though, so I think to have it be a ballot committee, it has to be more than 2 people. And you don't need it, you could also disband it, but I think having it there as as an exit ramp, emergency exit ramp when you need it for some kind of governance issue that's time sensitive is helpful, and therefore I would recommend at a minimum, you put the officers of the corporation on the executive committee, not just the 2.
I agree with that. I think with a president who's newly minted and might need more assistance than someone who's been here for 20 years as president, that executive committee could be a smaller sort of supportive
We can meet quarterly,
group. Yeah,
touch base with Ashley and kind of do it like, how's it going?
Yeah.
As opposed to, let's bring, you know,
the whole board together for that.
maybe we can evolve. Okay.
Other ones for that committee?
I'd have to go find it. We've not looked at that charter in a long time. I mean, I'm sure there's a document that goes through the membership committee, but we just haven't looked at it. The executive committee has a charter too. Again, we've not used it in a while, so we would want to, while we're reconstituting those, look at these charters.
Yeah,
It's been a while.
all right.
Why don't we dust those off?
Yeah.
And we could look at them in December even.
Yeah.
Self-evaluation.
Last thing in the packet should be page 23. And this is the annual best practice for the governance committee to do a self-evaluation. So the memo just walks through basically a number of times you met, and that we properly noticed them, you were open to the public, they're live streamed, everything else required. And that you reviewed all of the annual review of corporate policies. And that you did all of the board compliance actions for this year.
Seems like it's functioning properly to me.
Does this, other than the minutes of this meeting, will this go somewhere else? This self-evaluation? That one?
Oh, well, it goes on the website, right? Is that what we're
Yeah.
talking about?
We're
Yeah,
gonna
this
meet
is-
one.
I was
This
looking
in
for the committee charts when we were talking.
Yeah, I think this is on the packet of materials publicly, this draft.
Yes.
That-
So we're gonna end up meeting 4 times, probably, right?
So I'll up that before.
Once in spring too. Right?
Well, he's saying because we're gonna meet in early December, that it's gonna bump up to 4.
I think, for anybody have any comments or concerns on this?
No.
Okay, other business, I just want the minutes to reflect that several board members attended the ADO trainings.
There wasn't a lot.
Uh,
I'm surprised.
so very happy that we had Vero, Fancher,
Mhm.
myself, Anders. Probably missing somebody else too, so.
So good job.
What, yeah, the confirmation.
We just got them today, so.
I took them to them.
Helps us update.
Did
the
you
date.
get them forward? Did you get copied of them? or did you-
No, it's
Yeah.
from the ADO, it'll be a ADO email to you.
Might be in spam too.
Yeah, performance.
Don't hesitate to keep sending those proposed dates out.
Yeah,
I missed the 2 in October.
I'm sorry, it's not out for December dates, I can
Yeah.
check and see. And
Yeah.
we'll get December and then nothing.
Good for you.
Yeah, they only release each month, like.
Yeah, they wait
Uh,
until very last minute.
I do have, one item for executive.
okay,
Great.
So we'll go
make a
with
motion to go into executive session.
the discuss employment history and terms and conditions of employment of certain individuals. So when we're on, we'll do the motion in the second again and vote, so then we're out.
What are we voting on?
Just to come out of executive, so everyone will see that we're out of executive and there was a vote.
We good to go?
Yeah.
All right, okay, a motion and come out of executive session.
And motion.
Second.
All in favor, with the minutes reflected, no action was taken.
Motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Okay.
All in favor?
Thank
Why
you.
is it that